Hey guys, it's Brad from Blue Nile Farms. Today I want to talk about an alternative to if you have like a three-sided structure and you want to put up some doors. I want to show you an alternative that I use for a doorway that may be cost effective for you and may work out well for you. And it just gives you another option on the table because most people that put up barn doors, whether on a three-sided structure or any barn, you're either putting up sliding doors or overhead type doors. And I'm going to give you an alternative that may work out, like I said, if you're interested. So stay tuned and we'll kind of go over what it is and how it works and some of the positives and the negatives of both. So stay tuned. So this building behind me is basically my machinery shed. It's 30 foot wide, 80 foot long, and about 11 to 12 foot tall. And I built it, and it was one of my first buildings I ever built. And it made a lot of flaws as far as building it goes, but it's still standing, it's still doing its job. And I had that laminated style header on here, so they're built for heavy duty width. And when I built this barn, the barn started to basically, we had some high winds and basically tilled the barn over. And so I wound up losing a bunch of trusses. And to make a long story short, I wound up securing the building on the inside and made it into like specific independent bays. So the reason I bring that up is because I wanted to put doors on the structure for many years, and I live in northeastern Ohio, and a lot of times wind would come in from the east or even just blow, and snow would go into this barn and it would stay in here all spring, and I couldn't stand it. Secondly, I also wanted to make a shop out of one section over here right behind me, and so I wanted to have sliding doors to keep everything and the weather out. So I have actually 5 bays, and I wound up having a track to run completely across this barn. So out of the bays, I have 4 bays with sliding doors, and the doors about 15 foot wide. And I had one bay that I couldn't actually put a door on because I needed one empty bay to slide the doors to the left or to the right. And so I looked at an alternative, and this is the alternative that I chose. So just like you see it, like a lot of manufacturing companies, they have that plastic that basically is in the doorway, or it's like a refrigerant door. And that's what I decided to put here, because what I was looking at doing was basically keeping the wind and the weather out and be able to get in and out of the barn. And secondly, I didn't really have a door on the outside, so I figured it would serve also as a doorway. So I wound up contacting the company, and there's a bunch of them on the internet, and a lot of times they're interseated, like they're a company with a different name, but they're basically selling the same product, and basically you have to do a little bit of shopping around. But basically what they do is they sell them based on plastic widths, and you could have an 8-foot width, a 12-foot width, or and take that back. You can have an 8-inch width, a 12-inch width, or a 16-inch width. I went with the 12-inch width because I figured for the height of the door and what I plan on doing, I just want to keep the weather out. That'd be a good middle-of-the-road door, and I'm kind of happy I did that because it worked out real well. Secondly, what's nice about it is I kept it about 2 inches off the ground, and so a lot of the weather, it doesn't stick to the door. Like a lot of times with these sliding doors, if the weather and the snow builds up against the doorway, a lot of times it gets frozen and I have a hard time opening the doors. This, I've never had a problem opening the doorway at all. It's worked really good. Also, we had 60 inches of snow a couple months ago, and none of that snow actually blew into this barn, and it was really kind of nice. So I'm really kind of surprised at how it keeps the weather out, and it's done real well for me. And what's kind of neat about it, it just sits on a track, and it's held in by a metal strip along the top, which I'll show you here in a minute, and a bunch of bolts and nuts. And each strip is basically pre-drilled with the holes in it based on the measurement that you get. And you just kind of sit them in between the bolts and basically bolt the nuts down. And there's basically a strip of metal that basically holds it on. And it's easy. And it took me, by myself, I did it in like an hour to 2 because there's a lot of nuts and bolts. But once you're done, it worked out good. And this was for a 15-foot width. So let me show you the track, show you how it looks inside, and I'll show you the plastic. And I'll show you how that works also. So basically these are 12-inch strips, like I said, and they're basically overlapped. So they have, they can kind of stay together and they can kind of move with the wind, and it really surprisingly keeps the weather out. I'm pretty impressed with that. Secondly, on the outside here, on the top is my pull track. So the track that's holding this plastic strips on is actually on the inside of my header board. Here you can see the track and basically the inside looking from the outside as far as the header of the plastic strips. This get a little bit dirty because of the skid steer going in and out. You'll have a little bit of grease. But before it was working out good. I've had these up for 2 years and they are really pretty durable and they hold very well. And so I really like that a lot. So let's go on the inside and I'm going to show you basically the header boards. So if you look up, you can actually see the strip with all the nuts and bolts, and they're basically held in together by one piece of metal that basically covers each strip, and it goes all the way across to 15 feet. And you can notice there's just a lot of bolts. But the hardware is really nice. The plastic strips, if they actually break, you probably can get them replaced pretty cheap and relatively cost effective. And there's really not much to it when you put it together on the inside. So here's just a shot from being on the inside. My skid steer's in here. You can see the natural light, and you can see on the ground there's really not a lot of, there's a little moisture from outside, but no snow or anything else is blowing on the inside here, so it's relatively pretty clean. And this is not a concrete floor in here also, so it is what it is. But, you know, now as far as this wood and wind flapping with these sheets, if I really wanted to, I can run a 2x4 all the way across the top and just kind of hold it and kind of keep it from blowing in and out. But I've realized over time it's really not worthwhile. It does a pretty good job on its own, and I like the natural light aspect of it, and it works out pretty well for me. But this is what it actually looks like from the inside. So I want to talk real quick about the positive and negatives of this strip curtain. The positives are the fact is that it's easy to get in and out of throughout the year. Also keeps the weather out. And 3, it actually works as a doorway. So it does a really good job with that. Plus it's also lightweight. The negatives, it's kind of pricey at $1,500 was what I paid for it. But again, it's 15 foot wide, almost 11 foot tall, depending on the size you get and the width of the plastic. I think 12 worked out really good for me. I think that's a good medium size. The only other negatives I have is when you pull in here, like I'm pulling short, and you might have some of that plastic staying on top of your machine. You might have to pull it back over. If you can pull in deeper than I am on my machine, I'm like 4 or 5 foot from the doorway because I have debris that's in front of it. That kind of hinders you. But if you could pull in deeper, this thing would work out really good. Also, some people might be kind of anal about not pulling forward because of damage to their machine or scratches. And I understand that. And that might be one of the negatives, I would think, too. But because it is plastic, it's very soft plastic, I don't really think it's going to do a lot. But I know when I pull my tractors in, you know, you have lights and stuff like that, and they kind of hit it. And I kind of don't like, I get worried about the damage myself. But for all the skid steer and something like that, works in really good. If you have an open cab tractor, it might work just as good as well. So other than that, I think it's well worth doing. I'm really happy with it. And those are basically what I want to talk about as far as the positives and the negatives. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this doorway. It cost me probably about $1,500 to do this. And some people may think that's kind of expensive, but once you get all the hardware, you get it up quickly. It really does a nice job, and it's lasted me several years, maintenance free. And I know that I'm not going to have to purchase the track because it had its own cost to it. So if I have to do any kind of replacement, all I have to do is replace the plastic, and I think that's going to be a lot cheaper. So overall, if you're interested in something like this, I would definitely shop around, look on the internet, look at different prices. And because like I said, a lot of them go under a different name, and it's really the same company, and the prices were definitely different. So shop around, find the cheapest one, and I think it'll be in good shape. But they're definitely well worth it, especially if you have a 3-sided building. I think they'll do well. Now, I've seen other people, you can use these things also for like a livestock turnout. A lot of times people have running sheds for their animals. You can actually use one of these for a running shed too. Now, if you have horses and stuff, they may be a little bit spooky at first, but once these animals learn that they can go in and out of here, my cats do it all the time. You know, it's actually going to be a nice windbreak for them. It'll keep the weather out, and it'll keep them from getting, you know, cold. So it's actually going to be a nice economical doorway, I think, for your livestock if you want to go that route. You know, and they can bump it, knock it. You know, if they have a lot of flies on them, they can walk through it. It's kind of like a little fly brusher too, for cattle and for horses and so forth. So I think it's a good option. I think it was well worth doing. I would definitely do it again, especially if I had an open end barn where I just wanted to get something there and I don't really want to put up a doorway. This is cheap, it's light, it's not going to be a factor. And you know, that's why I had the laminated doorway, and I never thought I would actually put doors up, but I'm glad I did, and it really makes a difference. And that was really a cost-effective option. So look into it if you're interested. I think it's a good option to do, and I have no regrets for it. So with that said, hey guys, take care. Thanks for watching. Hopefully that'll help somebody out.